Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Bill Vorhies, your host. I'm the Editorial Director with Data Science Central, and I'm also the Chief Data Scientist for Data Magnum. So I'd like to start off our event today by thanking IBM Analytics for sponsoring today's event. IBM Analytics is an integral supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention and show our appreciation for some of our other recent sponsors, including Alteryx, Crowdflower, Tableau, Qubel, Dell Statistica, and Exaptive, to name just a few. Now, past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com, and if you haven't had an opportunity to view them, I encourage you to take a look. They provide some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our data science community. Now, today's webinar is entitled Combining IBM SPSS Statistics and R for Competitive Advantage. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today we'll have a 1-hour presentation with 2 presenters that I'll introduce in just a minute. And we'll try and save about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A following the presentation. Now, our event today is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. Now, I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation, as we'll be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Murali, Prakash, and Alex Oftelie of IBM Analytics. Now, Murali Prakash is a portfolio marketing manager in IBM Analytics' technical marketing team and currently leads the IBM SPSS Statistics product line. He's been with IBM for more than 4 years, and you can call him a data enthusiast at heart. Right from the day he graduated, he's been involved in various roles solving problems for real world using analytics. Now, he's recognized as a subject matter expert on predictive analytics, and he's worked on many clients across industries and geographies. He holds a master's in statistics and a master's in information technology from the University of Glasgow. Now, Alex Oftelie is a nonprofit subject matter expert for IBM, where he specializes in helping clients understand and demonstrate the impact of business analytics on fundraising and engagement efforts of nonprofits throughout North America. Now, Alex specific areas of expertise include predictive modeling, business impact analysis, survey design and sampling methodology, analytics training, and analytics implementation. Prior to working for IBM, Alex was Director of Analytics at a fundraising consulting firm. And there he worked with leading nonprofits in higher education, healthcare, community and the arts, helping them transform their philanthropic operations. He holds a bachelor's degree from St. Olaf's College and a master's of public affairs from the University of Minnesota. So Murali, Alex, thanks for being with us today. We're looking forward to your presentation. Now, in today's world, the data is flowing from all directions: social media, phones, weather, location and sensor-equipped devices, and more. And competing in this digital age requires the ability to analyze all of this data and to use it to derive decisions that mitigate risk, increase customer satisfaction, and grow revenue. Now, using a combination of proprietary software and open source technology can give your data scientists and statisticians the analytical power they need to find and act on insights quickly. IBM SPSS Statistics provides all the data analysis tools you need and integrates with thousands of R extensions for maximum power and flexibility. So in today's webinar, we'll show you how SPSS Statistics can help you keep up with the influx of new data and make faster, better business decisions without coding. Now, before we get underway, we'd like to learn a little bit about our audience and their experience with SPSS. So audience members, would you please respond and let us know whether or not you've had some experience with SPSS Statistics by clicking either yes or no on your screen. Thanks. Okay, and here we have the results. Well, about 2/3 of the audience has had some experience with SPSS, and about a third not, so that's an interesting finding. And so thanks for telling us about yourselves. Murali, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can begin as soon as you're ready to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill. Can you hear me fine? I'm okay?
Yes, just fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So, folks in the Data Science Central webinar, welcome once again for today's webinar on combining IBM HP Statistics and R for competitive advantage. So I think that Bill already introduced you to what the webinar is about, what's the abstract looking like, and that's exactly what we're going to discuss today. Now, without wasting any time, just wanted to quickly introduce, I'm sure Bill has already introduced, so this is Alex, okay, and you have his email addresses there, and we also have at towards the end of the presentation, so in case if you have any questions, you can contact us directly. So this is Alex. I'll just give it a second there in case if you want to make a note of it, if you have any questions later on, or you can even get in touch with the other platforms that we have, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so forth. And this is about me, and very similarly, same information. So if you want to make a note, we still have towards the last two, but in case if you want to make a note here as well, okay? Okay, I'll just leave that for a second. Okay, perfect. So folks, I think the whole goal of why we are here today is so I can explain it through the agenda that we have. So we're going to talk about a lot of welcome introductions are done, and we're going to talk more about what is exactly we're trying to solve today. What kind of problems are we seeing, what kind of data analysis that's going on today, and what are the new things that's emerging, and where you have to react pretty quickly, and how are you going to actually deal with it. That's exactly what we're going to handle today through the course of this presentation. Okay, and we're going to talk more about open source technology, R, and then we're going to talk about SPSS Statistics. We're going to talk about how we actually combine these two things together to make a powerful analytical combination. And we have a couple of examples towards the end in terms of really reflecting upon what we're going to talk about and how this integration really works in the real world. And towards the end, we're going to wrap up with Q&A, right? So that's the agenda for today. And just quickly moving on here. Okay. I'm sure a lot of you out there, you already said you have, almost 67.8% of people said they have experience with SPSS Statistics. So I'm guessing, very similarly, people have been using a lot of tools for data analysis, right? I mean, so far, if you really asked me about 10, 15 years ago, we really didn't care too much about data analysis, right? It's more about storing data, right? I mean, you have data, okay, let me get a database, or let me get some servers, let me store all this data, right? Now, analysis really, or making decisions based on the data sets, is really growing up too fast. If you look at in the last 5 years, the amount of data has been literally growing up too fast, very rapidly, and the decisions that you're going to make based on the data sets and the organizations believing in it and trying to make decisions is completely outstanding. I mean, the way things are today is completely in a different way. If you think about 15 years ago, now a lot has changed. Okay. In the same way, are we really considering the untapped resources? So what I mean by untapped resources is the new data coming in, right? So we know we have a lot of data in the databases, like transactional data. We have a lot of attitudinal data. We even collecting a lot of social media data. But there's also a lot of new data coming in, right? Are we really using all this data to make decisions? Now, even if you want to use it, how quickly can you implement that? How quickly you can embed this back into your organization's decision-making abilities? So that's where we're going to focus today, right? And why are we doing this? Because by tapping onto untapped resources, we're really looking at empowering everyone within the organization, no matter if you're an executive or maybe you're just a person who's actually trying to answer phone calls like in a call center agent. You're trying to really empower everyone within the organization by really tapping onto this untapped resources. And automatically, this is going to see the increased value within your business. The insights that you're going to find because of the new data, because of the influx of new data coming in, It's just that you're going to see the increased value within your business. Whether you're trying to increase your revenue, whether you're trying to increase customer satisfaction, whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to really find out the 360-degree of how you can actually make, you take your decision-making level to the next level. Okay. Now, let me just talk about a bit about untapped resources data, which we are talking about today, right? The data becomes such an important topic. Are we really talking about all the data? I'm sure all of you are familiar with all of these kind of data sets, like interaction data. We have emails, we have call centers, scripts, we have notes, and we have everything coming in. And the same way, if you look at the other way, attitudinal data, we're talking about opinions, preferences. A lot of these are coming in from social media too, right? And if you look at the descriptive data, we're talking about attributes, characteristics, including geographic demographics as well, right? So we are looking at all these kind of data which has been stored, structured, and some of them unstructured, and the one which we're very much used to is the behavioral data, orders, transactions. That's the transactional data which we usually get in, right? So these are typically the data we're trying to analyze, we're trying to make decisions on. Great. Now, have you really infused or thought about the new kind of data sets coming in? A lot of mobile data coming in today, a lot of location data. People making decisions on the fly, people accessing your applications on the fly, or people actually doing something on the mobile or using the location data, or social media data where you're trying to be real time. Somebody trying to tweet, or how many tweets we got, how many impressions we got, or if you're looking at the Facebook, how many likes we've got this for post. What's happening with the real social media data, or atmosphere, right? Now, when I say atmosphere, we're talking about something like weather, right? Is weather really impacting my business? Can if I add or infuse the weather data into my business or into my analysis, will it really improve the way I make my decisions today, right? Sensor data, that's really growing up too. A lot of people are actually depending upon a lot of sensor data today within the companies, within the businesses, everywhere around. Now, I can give you a beautiful example. A bakery chain, right, typically collects a lot of transactional data. What are the food products I'm selling today? Who's buying what? That kind of a thing, right? When they did the analysis, obviously they'll find out, okay, this is the product which is going to sell more, that kind of a thing. Now, what the bakery chain did is they kind of infused the weather data into with their transactional data. For example, how's the weather today, right? Whether it's rainy or sunny or it's been snowing, that kind of data being infused with their transactional data. Now, what they were able to find just because of adding that new dimension to their transactional data is really worthwhile, because now they were able to predict the sales of their products, the food products which they usually sell, based on the weather. For example, if it's rainy, they exactly know they sold product A and product B more than anything else. Or if it's been sunny, they sold product C and product D more, than anything else. So just by infusing the weather data back into their business, they were able to predict exactly the sales about, of their food products based on the weather. So you could imagine that. Now, because of that, they were able to increase the revenue, okay, one thing, because they exactly know how much sales they're going to do. And the second thing was about they reduced the food wastage because they knew exactly how many units or how much of quantity they're going to sell, based on the weather. So that is what we're talking about today, right? How we can actually infuse all these different new age data into your business and you can actually make decisions, okay? And that is possible, when you really have a powerful analytical combination, right? So today, we're going to talk about integrating IBM SPSS Statistics in R, okay? Now, generally, IBM SPSS and R have a lot integration story that's been going on for a while. It's been for years now, okay? So through this integration, literally, you can really find a lot of benefits. For example, you could have a beautiful interface. You can have outstanding data management and output management systems that you're going to have, and you can collaborate better with users, with other folks within the organization who are using, for example, R or IBM SPSS, right? And deployment, you have many deployment options that you can use as well. Now, through this integration, you can actually do it using IBM SPS Modeler, IBM SPS Statistics. That's the flagship products of IBM SPSS. But today, for this webinar, we're only discussing about IBM SPSS Statistics and R, how exactly these two integrate and what you can do, because of this integration, how you can benefit because of this integration, right? Now, this combination of IBM SP Statistics and R can make all this happen, what I just discussed. Whether you want to introduce any new age data back into your business, whether you want to infuse, all this is not possible within a minute or within a day, right? But this is possible using this integration. If you really want to use this data tomorrow, you can do it, because there are packages of R which you can which you can deal with, and which IBM SP Statistics supports through this integration. Okay, now I just want to quickly introduce, I know 67.8% of people actually said, their experience with SPS Statistics, but I just want to introduce, for the rest 37% about IBM SP Statistics. IBM SP Statistics has been in the business for more than 40 years now, okay? And we've been doing, tons of things in the last 40 years, literally to improve how people deal with data today, right? For example, you can quickly understand how your large data sets, behave, and with using a lot of advanced statistical procedures which we have within IBM SP Statistics. And the reason why you do that, obviously to make quality decisions on your data sets about your business, right? And the other best part is, you can really use IBM SP Statistics for, amazing visualizations. You can really go deeper into your data sets, the way you're going to represent, and the way you're going to see how your data sets are behaving. What is the story that it's telling you, right? So you can all see all that using IBM SP Statistics Output Management System, or better visualization that you can have, okay? Including geographic spatial analysis, which we introduced about 2 years ago within IBM SP Statistics. Now, at the same time, you also have, programmability. For example, if you're a no-voice user, if you're a beginner, you can literally use, the way you want it, like the meta-driven stuff, or if you're one of those advanced programmers, you can use the syntax levels, or you can integrate with R, Python, Java, or .NET as well. You can integrate those if you're pretty familiar with those programming languages. And the best part here is you can really deploy the results of IBM SPS Statistics or the way you want it. Okay, and that's the ultimate simplification of IBM SPS Statistics that we have. Now, without really wasting any time, I just had one more poll question for you guys. So, how many of you, do you have experience working with programming in R? How many of you really are R programmers who really program in R, who like to program in R? Who's been starting out right now? But a little bit experience, or just I'll leave that for almost. A couple more moments here before you could answer that question. Okay, so I think we should be okay to move forward. Okay, great. So do you have experience with programming in R? So we've got about 56.5% people saying yes, and 43.5% people saying no. So which is, which is pretty much good news. There are programmers as well. So the content which I'm going to discuss right here, it's going to help both. People who have said yes and people who have said no, and we're going to see that how. Okay, so why integrate? Obviously, one question you're going to be, having in your mind right now is, why integrate SPSS in R, right? So the basic reasons are, very simply, empower every user. Because today, it's not like, every data scientist or every statistician, will know everything. Like, will know programming, will know R, will know literally everything to really make it work, right? So we need to really empower every user. And how are we going to do that? Using IBM SPS Statistics extensions. We're going to know more about it within just a moment, okay? And at the same time, obviously, every business really wants to improve their productivity, right? And how you can do that, using a lot of, advancements that we have done for the existing features, in the last few months right now of the integration between SPSS and R. So you're going to see all that in just a moment, okay? Now, we're gonna literally talk more about, why IBM SPSS Statistics extensions, how this is. What are extensions? What are IBM SPSS Statistics extensions, and how this is going to benefit you, right? Now, here, if you're looking into this particular slide, what is exactly we're talking about here is, SPSS Statistics extensions are nothing but, it's just the application bundles, right? There are just the application bundles which integrate SPSS, R, Python, or Java code, into the rest of the SPS Statistics product. So it'll just look like, it's coming from SPS Statistics, but underneath that, it'll be using one of these different programming languages. SPSS, it could be SPSS, R, Python, or Java code. Okay, so you can think of them like the apps or add-ons. One example I can give you is like on your mobile phone. If you're using iPhones or Android phones, what do you do if you really need a new app? You just go to the Play Store, or you can, you go to the store, right? App Store, and you can just go and you can choose what app you want. You can search for it, you can download it, and you can put it on your phone so that you can really work on it. Yeah. Very similarly, even extensions are very similar, where you can just like apps or add-ons, you can just download them onto your IBM SPS Statistics, and you can start using them, right? The best part here is, these extensions are absolutely free. Okay, it's basically available at no cost to all the current IBM SPS Statistics users. So if you want to really download extensions, it's just free. Just go download them, and that's about it. You can start using it. Okay. Now the other thing is, you can download and use someone else's extensions. It can be written in R, it can be written in any Python, any open source. Right? But you can download and use anybody else's extension too. Or you can even create your own extension as well. Okay? So, and the other thing is, these extensions basically, they just look like, procedures within the product. Okay? And the back end, they might be completely running different syntaxes. They might be running SPSS syntax, or they might be running R or Python or Java code. Okay? So if you're using somebody else's extensions, it doesn't really matter what the code is running underneath. It's just that you don't know R, you don't know Python, you don't know Java, but through extensions, right, you're able to use that feature or functionality and without knowing what the code is running. Literally, even if you don't know what the code or programming language at all. Okay. Now, extensions can also contain new dialogues. It can contain SPS syntax. It can contain both. So that's the beauty of it. So if you're a syntax user, or if you're one of the graphical user interface users, you can use all this into combination, and you can take advantage of extensions here, right? So this is the beauty of extensions, right? If you really want to know more about the benefits, I can just give you a snapshot of what the benefits are going to look like in terms of extensions. Now, a lot of people, really want to leverage the open source. Even before I continue to tell that, so far the IBM SPSS and the statistics community, we have created about more than 100 product extensions, and these extensions have got about 500,000 downloads so far, right? That's amazing. Now, 500,000 downloads. You can imagine why. Why people are downloading it. So obviously, we can see a lot of benefits to these extensions. But the first thing is, you can leverage open source, right? Because these extensions can run literally R codes or Python codes underneath it with the custom dialogues, right? And you can use custom dialogues, and you can use that we have within IBM SPS Statistics, and these custom dialogues can run these codes underneath it, R code, Python code. So, and even if you don't know programming, imagine if there is an R extension you want to use, or for example R package or R code, all you have to do is just grab the code, wrap the code within the IBM SPS Statistics custom dialog, and that's about it. You can start using it, even if you don't know what the code really is doing, but you know exactly what the functionality maybe you want to use. Okay. Now, so if you're one of those believers within the open source community, all you have to do is, if you want to leverage the open source community completely, you can start using it. You can start using these extensions, right now. Okay. Now, the second thing is, you can really, consume all the, add-on procedures without programming. For example, imagine if you're one of those who actually answered no, do you have experience in programming in R? So almost like, literally close to 50% said no. Yeah. So basically, I would say maybe one of the reasons you don't have time to learn R or Python, what you can do is, you can run all these different codes, R, Python code, within these extensions. You can install extensions, written in those languages with just a simple point-and-click interface, and that's about it, right? So you can easily build an extension and share. And for example, imagine if you're one of the programmers, okay, and maybe your colleague is not a programmer who doesn't actually use R, you can just create an extension within no time, and you can let your colleague use this extension, even if your colleague doesn't know programming. Okay, so that's exactly what extensions are doing today, right? You can leverage the open source community completely, even if you don't know programming. Even if you know programming, you can be great by creating these extensions, and you can let the other people within your organization use it. Okay, now you can also see there we've said automate common SPSS syntax. For example, if you're using SPSS Statistics, okay, and then if you have a lot of common SPSS syntax stacks that you usually use, you can run or you can turn the syntax into extensions within a minute. All you have to do is put the syntax in custom dialog, and that's about it, and run it. And these extensions are done. So basically, you're able to run that job which you've been automating for long enough now just by using custom dialog. It's fast and it'll save you time. Okay. And lastly, one other thing we've used is customize SPSS Statistics. So you can customize SPSS Statistics the way you want it. For example, imagine there's a procedure that you've been running. You can create this as a custom dialog within no minute, within a minute by creating an extension. So if you're using a lot of procedures, you can do all that by just converting them into extensions within a minute. So I think all these actually will make sense when you really look into more about how this is really done. Okay, so probably Alex will walk you through on that as well. So one other slide which I wanted to show you before I pass it on to Alex is, this is the IBM SPSS Statistics Extensions Hub. It's just like your Play Store kind of a thing, right? Now, all you have to do is just go to the Extensions Hub once you have your SPSS Statistics, of course, and then you can easily browse, download, and upload, update and remove the free product extensions based on SPSS, Python, or syntax. You can just go, and there are a couple of filters too, based on the language, based on the category you're searching for, and you can find all the extensions which you really wanted to use. And then you can download, you can start using them right now. Okay. Now that's what the Extensions Hub looks like on the right-hand side screenshot. Now, from here, I'll just pass it on to Alex to just continue the story of why the integration between SPSS and R, and also he's going to show you some beautiful examples. Alex,
Great.
over to you.
Thank you, Murali, and very excited to be speaking to everyone today. I'm very fortunate in my job with IBM that I get to do a lot of travel and presentations to a lot of different crowds and audiences. And when I meet people for the first time, I don't usually like to ask people, where you're from or what you do. I like to ask people what they're passionate about, because usually you get a more interesting answer, a more personal answer. It's a great place to start a conversation. So obviously, this is kind of a one-to-many conversation. I can't ask you what you're passionate about, but I can share my passion. And my passion is using technology to create insight. Okay, so I have a background in statistics. Obviously, I work for IBM, and I deal in technology all day long. But these are not the things that drive me. They interest me. But what I'm passionate about is how we can use this technology, use these tools to create insight. And Bill at the top mentioned some of my background in the nonprofit space, and I appreciate that. But I think Murali also showed a slide that I used to work for a place called Gallup. If you're in North America, you probably know them. We do a lot of counting of things, and I used to be an economist for the state of Minnesota. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences. And the common thread for all these beyond creating insight is SPSS technology. So I've been using this technology for almost 20 years. So that's kind of my native, I guess, analytics language. And my secondary analytics language, about 5 years ago, I started to pick up R, and excited to be here to kind of share some ideas. I have kind of a fundamental example so that everyone can get their arms around it of how you can program and leverage what's out there in the open source community and combine it with R. And so when I talk to people every day about kind of this ability to combine these software packages, I like to really focus on, what are the strengths that each one of these software tools brings to the table. And so certainly SPSS has a lot of well-developed features and capabilities. Specifically, if you're familiar with something like custom tables and reporting capability, its ability to process very large volumes of data, some of the add-ons like natural language processing technology. Those are some real strengths of SPSS. R, there's a lot of dynamic stuff. So, Murali did a great job kind of outlining, all the new sources of data. And so, we at IBM SPSS, because this is a built, polished, developed product, it's hard for us to stay on top of new data streams that come out every few months, right? The new app, we're capturing new stuff all the time. So the open source community is much more timely about staying connected with that. So that's one area that R does great. And R does great, ggplot, some of the visualization capability, and R is fantastic too. So that's how I like to think about this kind of partnership and our ability to combine these two. Again, I've been coming at this from a long-time SPSS user who learned R, but certainly, excuse me, I think if you're an R user, you can find a lot of benefit kind of approaching this the other way. So the first thing I want to kind of walk you through is an example of a custom Dialog extension that one of my colleagues built and I've since rebuilt and I actually did as a little bit of a pro bono analytics project for a business here in Minneapolis where I live. So this idea of, for those familiar or those not familiar with SPSS Statistics, there's two main functionality interfaces. One, you could type things out using SPSS syntax or SPSS command language like R or Python or base SAS. It is a kind of a proprietary language, so there's some similarities, but we have our own specific syntax. Or most of our users, I would probably say 75%, do most of their work using the drop-down interface. So maybe more similar to like if you were in Microsoft Excel or some other products using a drop-down tool of selecting dialog boxes to run a series of functions and commands. So what Murali's been talking about, what I'm going to share with you shortly, is how we can take and leverage, in this case I'm going to leverage some R syntax, an R package, but you can create it and build it into a very simple, easy to use, repeatable SPSS command that you can use yourself, or, and Murali mentioned this as well, you can create something to share with other users in other users that may not have programming experience. So I did that when I was at Gallup. I created a few R extensions that I was able to create and deploy to other people who didn't know R, and so they were able to access that functionality without having to have necessarily the background that he mentioned. So I know he's been referencing this predictive analytics community, but we strongly recommend everyone check this website out. It's developer.ibm.com/predictive analytics. And when you're there, there's a lot of different features. Note that this ability to do extensions in SPSS Statistics is available to anyone. Murali, correct me. Is it anyone with version 19 and up? Is that correct?
Yeah, version 18,
right.
18 and above.
Version 18 and above.
Version 18
so the current version of SPSS Statistics is Statistics 24. But this is available for anyone version 18 and above, and if you're running SPSS Modeler, version 16 and above. And so just a few kind of housekeeping items. You're going to want to go to this website. There is obviously, if you're going to want to run R, you want to download the most current version of R on your machine as well. And on top of that, you need to install an extension that you can simply download here. It's obviously free. So you want to download, you want to get R, I think 3.2.4 is the current R version, and it downloads the extension between SPSS and R. And so what this will do, it will also cover Python if you download Python as well. So anytime you're running an R command in SPSS, it points to R, runs a function or whatever you're calling it to do, and pushes the results, whether it's data or output or a transformation or a graph, back to the traditional SPSS statistics output. So that's the website that's there. And then there's also as Murali mentioned, I think this is coming up on 200 actually, pre-built extensions. I'm going to show you one of them today. This is kind of my, from my years of consulting, my consulting tip of a regression that I believe everyone should use or everyone would get value out of. And that's available to download today. And so if you have R and the utility extension to point to R, you can start running these extensions in less than 5 minutes. So the first example that I want to talk about is Facebook comment data. So what I was actually did is comes from a project I was actually working with. Again, I mentioned before I live in Minneapolis, and I'm a big jazz music fan, and there's a pretty famous jazz club here, and I know some of the people that work there, and they actually have SPSS Statistics. They have a copy, and they try to do marketing analysis to try to see what drives revenue and drives sales, et cetera. So kind of traditional descriptive, not much predictive, and they have a web page, they have a Facebook page, which is their primary advertisement source. So they're not on TV, they don't do things in the newspaper, they really drive through social media, and their primary social media is Facebook. So what they wanted to do is they had their current data on transactions and sales, and they wanted to combine it with an understanding of likes, comments, shares, all that kind of stuff, to see how this relates to changes in daily ticket sales. So if I push out a blast email or a blast post or something like that, or I put some video content up that gets liked a bunch but doesn't get shared, what's that relationship between that and the ticket sales we had that day or the following day, or if we had 24-hour special sale? How does this relate to the social media data we were posting? So that was their fundamental problem. They didn't feel like they had the technical ability to get at this data from their page, and then the second part was they didn't feel like that they had the ability to link it up with their CRM data, their ticketing, and they kind of co-opted Salesforce to handle this. So I just showed them how we could build a simple extension in SPSS that even, and to use their words, their least technical marketing associate can use to pull this data over some time frame, understand what the impact or kind of the stickiness and popularity of certain social media posts, and then relate that to business outcomes that happened immediately following. So the R package here is the very popular R Facebook package, available on of course, the CRAN library. I would definitely go check that out. One note here, if you're doing this, they did change Graph API changes through Facebook beginning of last month. So this updated since the last time I ran it, so I had to go back and do some different stuff. But you're going to get a token, right? So you're going to get a token so you can access this information and get permission for Facebook. So again, a little bit more kind of behind the scenes stuff. There's a couple different links. I didn't put any links on here. There's a couple different very easy to understand, helpful links that walk through this process. But that token essentially is the one thing you need to embed to make this our Facebook package work. That's pretty much all you need outside of the custom dialog builders to put in the token, which allows you to have back-end access API to the Facebook data from whatever page you want. So we were showing you a little bit before around how to build a custom dialog in SPSS Statistics. So when you're in Statistics and you open up the custom dialog builder, you'll get a box that looks like this, and it'll be a kind of a blank canvas on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. Kind of looks like a little graph line paper, and we can drag and drop a variety of kind of commands to build the dialog box. Let me walk through what I did. So that's where we drag our commands, and on the right-hand side is where we're actually going to put our syntax. Now, as Murali mentioned, I'm going to put, actually, we're just going to run all R syntax, or we're going to run the entire R Facebook, or part of the R Facebook package to build this node. But you can run a combination, and I've built things that have run SPSS Statistics commands, and then followed by a Python command, and then a statistics command again. So maybe a data manipulation or utility function. So you can actually, it's in that sense, our ability to build extensions is in itself multilingual. You might need to be a little bit more thoughtful about building that out. So literally the steps to build this extension was, first thing I needed to do was I needed to grab a text control field. So this is the page ID. So this is the idea of you actually at the end of the URL of the Facebook page I was going to be looking at, and I'll show you what that was. It's Dakota Jazz Fan, I believe is what it was. So all you had to do was throw in the page identifier. We threw in, I wanted to throw in certainly over a time period range, so I wanted to go over a period of a month and 2 months, excuse me, and look at kind of social media posts by comment, likes, and shares. Then you throw in a date control, and then from there, literally importing or pasting in, you copy and paste the syntax from the R Facebook package. Okay, and just so you know how this works. Hopefully, that's not too small or fuzzy on your screen. It looks a little fuzzy on mine, but you can see that the beginning syntax when you're in stats, not too dissimilar from your R folks, is begin program R, call on the library. Here it's calling on the token or employing our token that we use to access the data, and here's the bottom end of that command, which then creates an SPSS data set for us, and we even did some graphing and plotting of the data. So this is a nice kind of simple package that's built in for you. It's doing a lot of stuff, grabbing that data over any time period you want to from any page that we're allowed to have access to. We've now built this into one simple command that was really just assembling the text control, some date parameters, thoughtfully labeling, downloading that Facebook token, otherwise pasting in that R syntax. So what does that actually look like? So this is what it would look like from a finished user production standpoint. So now I put this under the data menu, excuse me. So if you know SPSS Statistics, there's a data menu. I put that under the data menu. And there's the actual URL of the Facebook page. Go visit them. I'm sure they would like your activity. Actually, don't. It might, if there's a big bump in activity, it might screw up their analysis now that outside people are looking at it and not buying tickets. But I just literally, you throw in the page ID, start date, end date, and you hit run, and the end result is you get some sample comment data here. So likes, shares, and the amount of comments. Now this is what I chose to pull from that our Facebook package. Certainly, there's quite a bit more data that you have access to. You can actually pull in text from comments. You can actually pull in different kinds of interactions that you can have within a Facebook page. But these are just kind of the three ones that I wanted to start them with. So again, go back to this idea of they have Facebook is their primary tool for marketing. They want to know, does anything work? Does anything help? What's relating to ticket sales? They don't really have an idea. A very difficult thing was getting at this data and putting it into a tool that they feel like they could use, and then from there being able to create some insight around it. So again, a couple-step process, and you end up with a nice little extension like this. And this is something. This little extension is a little has an extension handle called SPGX, and you can save it and export it. And I could email this to Murali and say, "Hey, Murali, here's that Facebook extension. If you have R, here you go." And he could install it. Then he could point to a certain page ID that he has permission to have access to, go over any date range, and pull out any of this data he wants. So, so leveraging again, without having to have that background in this programming technology. So being able to leverage what's already been created out there to allow you to kind of access that data. So again, a very fundamental example of accessing data. There's some other ones that I've used. That Tweet2R is a pretty interesting Facebook package. Tweet the number 2R that you can find on CRAN. RNOAA is a good one. RNOAA, right? That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. There's some good weather data available from there. And then, of course, RW Underground, or Weather Underground. So that's actually from the Weather Channel, which is, I should plug, is an IBM company. But they have some streams available there, too. And those packages are fairly robust. There's a lot of options. I've been doing a lot of work recently using those, both in statistics and modelers. So those are available to you. But that allows you to bring in some of the weather data that Murali was mentioning earlier in his example. So the other thing I want to show you very quickly, another version of an extension, a pre-built extension, one that I didn't assemble, like with the Facebook extension. But this is, so we get to this idea of, okay, now I have a little bit of social media data. I know I'm putting up stuff daily, what's getting shared, what's getting commented, who's posting what, how How's it sticky? How's it traveling? And then how can I relate that to sales? So there's a R package out there, and it's also an SPSS Statistics extension package called REL-IMP. So this is my consulting tip. Not as many people use this as I believe should. This is a relative importance, also called a Shapley value regression. So this is a great regression package out there. It's not native to statistics, so it's not naturally built in, but you can install a package that will allow you to do it. But basically, this is a great way of running a regression when there's a lot of multicollinearity between variables. So obviously, for sharing, posting, and liking, those are three different actions, but there's a lot of overlap, and they're very tied together, right? Or it'd be like if you're doing survey work, which is to do a lot of Gallup, and you'd ask people, three different questions around the same topic. Those are individual questions, but there's a lot of multicollinearity going on because we're talking about the same topic. So this idea of a Shapley value regression is fantastic because it allows us to not only estimate how much do likes, shares, and comments explain the next day's ticket sales, but also how much did each one of these things independently contribute compared to the others. So Shapley value regression is a simple package. I downloaded from the SPSS Extension Hub I showed you the link to earlier. And just, this is kind of a nice built extension that one of my colleagues at IBM built. And, he's thrown my dependent variable trying to predict ticket sales. This is actually ticket sales the next day. It's a function of the social media data that I just harvested, or I helped them harvest over a 2-month period. And I requested that we include kind of the Shapley value and scale to importance. So again, this is a great regression. For some reason, not as popular as I think it should be, which is why it's currently not a native to SPSS Statistics, but it is available in R, and so I was able to leverage it. And so the outcome and the value of a project like this, or how I was able to translate this, again, going back to my original statement, I'm interested in insight, is that with just Facebook likes, comments, and shares, so that I'm not implying maybe a direct causality, but I was able to explain roughly 40% of the fluctuation in next day ticket sales could be predicted from just Facebook comments, likes, and shares. So that's my adjusted R squared. So what's fascinating about something like a relative importance or Shapley value regression is among that 40% that I can explain, how much is attributable to likes, how much is attributed to comments, and how much is attributed to shares. And so hopefully, again, these values aren't too small for you on the screen, but these are scaled to 100%. So what does this mean? So of the 100% of this 40% that I can explain, so of this 40% I can explain, over half of that comes from shares, a little less likes, and then comments is the least likely, or the smallest contributor to being a predictor of next day ticket sales. Okay, and so what Shapley value does is it runs essentially kind of an iterative, generalized linear model, running with 1 factor, 2 factors, and in this case 3 factors. You can see from the screen how, for example, comments themselves look like they're extremely predictive. The coefficient's quite large, and then as you add another factor like likes or shares, or if you add all 3 factors, how their power in fact kind of diminishes. So that's a Shapley value regression. It's great when we're doing anything in kind of the behavioral economics, human behavior space, trying to understand outcomes of related items and kind of tease out of what we can explain what's the big driver. So what's the insight here? The insight for the Dakota Jazz Club was creating content or promoting content that people can actually share versus comment or like is the real. It seems to be the real predictive driver of next day ticket sales. So that should possibly be something that we should focus on more. So again, that was an already pre-existing R package called REL-IMP, RELIMP. So I'd go ahead and take a look and download that if you're a stats user, or if you're just an R user. I would also find that package on CRAN and go ahead and open it up. It's fantastic. So that was just, again, a very fundamental example, but I wanted to create something that everyone could understand and kind of see and kind of get their arms around of your ability to leverage existing R language to build an extension, as well as import some existing extensions to create some insight that was previously considered not possible for this team because they didn't have extensive programming background. So those are some very quick examples. I know we had our contact information up at the beginning. I think we're going to have it up here at the end. So if you want to learn more about this, please feel free to reach out to Murali or myself. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Murali, who has a couple more closing slides, and then we'd like to turn it over for a Q&A.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. I think those were really cool examples on how to use extensions and how you can really benefit from the new age that are coming in, right? So thank you. And so folks, actually, what you can do as a next step, I'm sure if some of you not using SPSS Statistics, you can try it for free, right? You can just type the link ibm.com/try SPSS, and that's it. You can download SPSS Statistics and you can try it for free, right? Now, people who have SPSS Statistics and who probably, trying or, thinking about trying these extensions, you can download or create your own extensions too. And how you can do this, you can visit the community that we have, Predictive Analytics community. The URL is very simple, developer.ibm.com/predictive analytics. Okay, so you can even type Predictive Analytics community on Google. I'm sure you can get there, right? Now, through the community, I'm sure you can find tons of content similar to what we've just showcased in the webinar. Okay, you can download extensions, you can create extensions, you can really play around there, right? And some of these, what we just showed as examples right now, keep visiting the community, and we will be posting these as, hopefully, demos in action, sometime later, right? But, there are tons of things that you can look at as well, very similar examples in the community already existing. So you can just go and watch some of these in real action that's happening on the community as well, okay? Now, otherwise, if you really want more information about SPSS and other stuff and how things really work, the integration, everything, you can really visit ibm.com/SPSS to find more information about it, okay? Now, the other thing of which I really wanted to introduce you is one of the flagship events that we usually have every year, which was formerly called as IBM Insight, in the last previous years, Information and Demand, and then IBM Insight. And this year we have something like the World of Watson, IBM World of Watson, okay, which is happening in Las Vegas, which is from October 24th, 27th. Now, this is where you can see a lot of these, what you just saw. That was just a glimpse of, what you can, do with data, what you can, what kind of analysis, kind of tools you can use, but you can do a lot more. This was just about 1%. 99% you can actually see all this in action live, everything at the World of Watson, which is happening right in October, okay? So if you have time, just type in World of Watson. You can get to the link, or you can just, you can go and visit this particular page to know more information about the World of Watson itself, okay? So all this is just basically for about data and how you can actually make better decisions using the data, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about. Now, with that, we pretty much, towards the end, I think I'll pass it on to Bill for the Q&A portion of it. So, Bill, over to you.
Well, Murali, Alex, thanks for that excellent presentation. And we'll get started with today's Q&A session. And I want to thank the audience for their participation. We've had a lot of questions that have come in during the presentation, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we can in the few remaining minutes. And during this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen, which has the contact information for Murali and Alex, if you'd like to contact them following today's webinar. So let's dive right in. Murali, Alex, the ability to use R in the context of SPSS is obviously very, very powerful. But are there limitations on what R functions I can use within SPSS?
I have not come across any to date. Murali, have you come across? I've used about 75 different functions. I mean, I suppose if you're using, I think maybe if you're using an R function that calls on another package's function, so that would be like kind of this like Russian nesting doll of software functionality, that might not work so well. So if you're having R access another analytics program to run something, and you were trying to run that through SPSS Statistics, that might be a little bit too much of a chain, but that's the only example that I've come across or heard of that was a limitation. Otherwise, pretty much everything's open. You can build the extensions, or what we didn't talk about before too. If you don't want to build the extensions, you can actually just paste the syntax into an SPSS syntax editor, like our syntax menu, and run things from there as well.
Okay, well, thank you for that excellent answer. Now, here's a question that goes right to the heart of the issue, and boy, I'm waiting for your answer on this one because I know what I'd say. And that is, if a user is already proficient in R and uses, for example, Tableau for visualization, why do they need SPSS in addition to those skills?
You want to take a stab at this, Murali?
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's a good question because I'm sure a lot of questions have come by before as well, where we're talking about extensions and stuff like that. Now, when you're using, let's say, R, and you've been a proficient programmer, as you said, on R, and you've been using all the things that you've been trying to use. Imagine now, as I said, organization, it's growing. A lot of people are trying to, make decisions at the fly on their desk at the moment. And, and it's not easy for everybody to learn, for example, R programming, right? I mean, it's not, something which everybody can do. For example, imagine if you're supporting a department or if you're supporting a complete organization, on the data analysis or trying to help them make decisions, right? Imagine if you can actually provide them, there's a way where you can actually, they can put their own data, they can run just by click of a button, and they can actually view the results and make decisions just on them, right? And that is possible using extensions, even without knowing R programming, R code, anything within, those set of users, can actually make decisions based on what you can do, right? I mean, imagine if you have to run the R programming and then you have to do all this, that's completely not possible from where you're sitting. Now, that is just one other example. The other things that I can definitely possibly tell you is, you're not just creating, just by R as an open source, but the thing is you're actually creating a powerful analytical combination, right? You're trying to use the benefits of both, SPSS and R. SPSS has its own benefits. For example, it's got the data management capabilities. You can actually, collaborate pretty well. For example, we have the collaboration deployment services where you can really collaborate with every user. We can run projects. Everything is possible within SPSS. So similarly, R as its own sort of benefit. So you can combine all these both, to really become this, analytically driven organization. So these are some of the things that I can really think at the top of mind. But I'm sure, Alex, if you have any, please add them.
Yeah, well, it just, it's pretty well known that there is a kind of a lower threshold for processing volume with R, natively with R, than with statistics, for example. So that's why folks at the U.S. Census use SPSS Statistics for just one example to name drop somebody. So I know there's some memory and processing issues that are not. They're just native to kind of some open source technology too. So it depends on the volume you have, but definitely Murali's point of being able to share and deploy across the organization and empower other people to do work. If you feel like you're already well developed in R and you're doing your viz in Tableau, you don't want to do your viz in SPSS. If you're doing your viz in Tableau, that might work for you, but I think there's some other kind of reporting and processing technologies that SPSS has that I think it's worth exploring and using a free trial that Murali mentioned.
Well, Murali, Alex, thanks for some great answers to some very good questions. Unfortunately, we're coming to the top of the hour, and for those of you that have asked questions that weren't answered today, we'll be sending all those unanswered questions to Murali, Alex, and the IBM Analytics team, so they can follow up with you following today's webinar. I have just a few quick announcements. If you'd please mark your calendars for September 13th, that's our next DSC webinar, which is how not to be wrong about visualizations in Tableau. Also, remember that today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing later today, and you can find that on the home page of Data Science Central in the Webinar tab, which is located at the top of the page. Well, this brings today's webinar to a close. And I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and their thoughtful questions, and a special thanks again to Murali, Prakash, and Alex Oftelie and IBM Analytics for their sponsorship, and our speakers today for their insight into today's topic. My name is Bill Vorhies. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event. I look forward to seeing you all again on September 13th. Have a great day.